good afternoon, everyone, and warm welcome to the Financial Conclave 2021. So, we are conducting this panel discussion on ransomware DDoS attacks targeting 100 plus financial firms. Uh, and So this is the panel discussion that we are conducting, as we have seen that from last 1 year we are working from home, and we have seen that there are tremendous amount of attacks on financial institutions, whether it is in the form of ransomware or maybe DDoS or credential stuffing, or maybe we have seen several different attacks which are targeting financial sector, because that's where money lies, and those are at a prime target of attackers. So today we have an eminent panel to discuss this particular topic, which we are bringing together, which is on the ransomware and DDoS. So I have with me Mr. S.S. Sharma from Certain. He's working as a director, Certain. Uh, Welcome, Mr. Sharma, sir. So I have Kelvin V, who is a senior security director for Asia Pacific and Japan for Sentinel One. Welcome, Kelvin. I have with me Sanmesh. He's from Infosys. He's heading managed security services for Infosys. Welcome, Sanmesh. I have Himanshu Dubey, who is heading security for Quick Hill Technology, security research for Quick Hill Technologies. And to moderate this session, I have Mr. Bharat Panchal, who is Chief Risk Officer for FIS Global. And now I would request Bharat to please take on and moderate this panel for us.
Hi, good afternoon to all, and thanks for DSCI for continuing this show for long period. And though we are going through pandemic time, but still they have continued that tradition to have FinSec, and I'm happy to be part of this. Uh, Ransomware is something which is now known to almost everyone, those who are working
Yeah,
in
I'm off
technology,
the stage.
because
I'm now back at the
uh,
backstage, right?
all of us have come across one or another target. And let me give you very
Oh, still
easiest
content is
example
showing.
uh, for us to understand
Let
what
me
is
switch off my
ransomware is
video
all about.
then.
Those who have seen a movie Sholay, where Gabbar
Okay.
and his people are putting a threat notice at the entrance of the gaon that you need to pay this much, or you'll lose your life. That is the simplest way of ransom, and that has formed in digital, and that is what is a ransomware, what we all are talking today. And in very recent time, about 100 financial sector firm or institution across multiple countries were targeted in the wave of ransomware distributed through distributed denial of service, which is called DDoS. And among those, but naturally, the 70 or 80% of those targeted institutions were either bank or exchange or payment companies or card issuer, were something where they can monetize. So in each instance, the attacker were, the likes, as I mentioned in my example, they used to give a target of an extortion that, okay, this much you need to pay in Bitcoin, and unless you pay this, we will not give your data, we will not allow your service to run as normal services, and unless you pay them, nothing is going to happen. And that's where in the world we are today. So ransomware plus DDoS is, at another form or example of a multi-vector attack, which executed by a specific APT group or group of hackers, which literally take your system or services for task, and does not allow anything to happen. And as data suggests worldwide, that financial sector the most hot target, because that's where they get maximum money, and that's what the motivation for them. So I have very eminent panel to discuss about this. Let me not take too much of time to spend about the introduction of ransomware, but we as a country, India as a fastest growing economy in the world today, and at the same time, our digital adoption has gone, multifold. We all are a witness of having UPI billion of transaction every month, and we are seeing 1 billion transaction a day. So, along with that digital transformation, the cyber risk are also phenomenally increasing day by day. So my first question to Sangamesh, that you are coming from a very reputed company, Infosys. So can you please provide a little perspective about how the ransomware originated, and how its proliferation is happening in such a short time, and what are the implications on the overall system?
Yeah, thanks, Bharat, and good afternoon, everyone. So, if you look at Bharat, the ransomware, right? It is, as you correctly mentioned, it has been demonstrated in Sholay movie as well. And if you look at the adoption by the malicious users, right? It has been there for more than a decade. If you look at, many people don't even know like it has been existed in the late 1980s, right? So the first ransomware, which is called as the AIDS Trojan, which was actually developed by a biologist, Joseph Putnam, right? So in the AIDS conference, so he actually distributed the diskettes which had the malicious program, malicious code, which had the capability to encrypt the files, or rather lock the files and the directories, to put it in a simple way, right? So that is the first known ransomware so far we know. And and in fact he also demanded like at least I think it is $10 to be dropped in PO box, right? He had also given the instruction like where they have to pay the ransom to recover the files and the directories, right? So that is the first ever ransomware that is known to the industry. And the research have been going on in terms of how I mean, this is predominantly from the ethical perspective, in terms of how we can actually protect the data by encrypting it, all such things. Same as the case, the similar thought process has been picked up by the malicious user, and they used it for orchestrating an attack and achieving their modus operandi, right? So if you look at the evolution, the first existence of ransomware was spotted on 1989, that's the AIDS Trojan. And after that in 1996 there came a thought process of the research on using asymmetric encryption, right? um,
Right.
for encrypting the files, right? And it also slowly evolved, and in 2006, 10 years later, it was first demonstrated by a ransomware named Archivius Trojan, right? So that is the first ever ransomware which had used asymmetric algorithm using RSA algorithm, that demonstrated the usage of the cryptography for a malicious purpose. And slowly, while the controls have been developed, like I mean, those are the days where we are more focusing only on the antivirus solution, not I mean, even we have not even coined the term APT, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
and after that, like we also had the introduction of Bitcoin. So instead of demanding the hard cash, the Bitcoin, which was introduced in 2008, that has become one of the channel for the attackers to use it by creating their own wallet and demanding. It's not even asking; it's a demanding for a ransom
Demanding.
to decrypt. Yeah, to
Ransom is always
decrypt their file.
demanded, not asked.
Yes, of course, yeah. And 2015 is where we seen the focus of attackers shifted towards from the traditional attacks of denial of service attack, or it could be a
Multi-vector.
malware attack, just by creating the damage, right? To
Yeah,
become
yeah.
like a destructive in nature. The introduction of a crypto locker with a time bomb capability. A time
Right.
bomb in the
So,
sense
so
like they want to create the impact at the same time.
So agree, Magnesh, that the ransomware as a service, or which has targeted multi-vector attack, has gone really multi-fold in last 1 or 2 years.
Multi-phase,
Unfortunately, in this pandemic time,
multi-stage.
yeah, and pandemic time, I think it has gone much more beyond our imagination. So it has become a threat for nation also. So of course, government is also very very serious about how to handle cyber attack, and one of the important role being played by certain, and we have great participant here on the panel, Samvedam Sharma, who is known for his great initiative he took many years ago about Cyber Swachhta Kendra. So let me bring him in this talk, that what could be the organization strategy, because he managed the government strategy as well. So but he's the right person to take tell us about the government strategy, or what one should follow as a strategy to counter this sophisticated campaign, be it ransomware or DDoS or targeted multi-vector attack. Sharmaji, welcome on this discussion, sir.
Thank you, Bharat. Thank you for the kind words. Yes, this threat we have been tracking this. CSERT, we are operational since 2004 January, and it's a long journey. Various kinds of threats and incidents. As the threats are evolving, we are also evolving and expanding our facilities. So many initiatives have been taken. As you mentioned correctly, one of the important initiative was the Cyber Swachhta Kendra. It's meant as a center for cyber hygiene that is more towards the citizens and common users as well as organizations also. And of course, we handle incidents and we operate 24% help desk, so we know what kinds of incidents happen. Of course, all incidents are not reported. And from a ransomware context, I'll tell 2-3 important points, and I'll come to Cyber Swachhta Kendra also. See, Cyber Swachhta Kendra actually, basically, it is meant to track infected systems in the country and to reach out to user and enable them cleaning of the infected systems. That is the primary objective. So we have collaborative arrangements with various organizations and feeds, etc. We collated. We operated various sinkhole servers, etc., and tracked the infected systems. And then we have actually sort of tie up with ISPs to reach out to customers and send message. For a normal citizen, when he receives this message that his computer or malware is infected, how he will understand it, how will he act upon that? So for that, we created a website with a simple language, and based on the global botnet cleaning initiatives and those experienced in other countries, we created a simple HTML website, and we have collaborated with antivirus vendors. Particularly, we are thankful to QuickHeal for quickly coming on board there and creating free removal tools for us. And this helped a lot actually in terms of giving a prominent botnet infections. If you see overall infections, top 10 botnets cover 90% of the infections. So if top 10 botnets if you can get cleaned, we will have good hygiene. So we shared with the samples we kill, and we got removal tools developed. In case of WannaCry, within a few hours we got a removal tool developed and we hosted there. And we could quickly conduct a webcast and reach out to users also through YouTube to create awareness. Now, after that, we have continued these collaborations. Research institutes are on board with this, and various ISPs in India are on board with this initiative, and they are doing aggressively the notifications, etc. Recently, the eScan Microworld Technologies has come on board, and K7 Computing is also come on board, and they are also creating removal tools. So in a way, it's a very effective public-private partnership in true sense. Industry is partnered here. Their antivirus vendors are helping us, and intelligence is coming from various global as well as domestic sources. We know about infected systems, and now the second part comes about the ransomware and all those things, where the challenge typically is in a generic user awareness. There we are taking help of ISCA program, Information Security Education Awareness Program, where a portal is created, isca.infosecawareness.in. This has information about basic information security in various Indian languages, not only English, Hindi, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, all languages. Material for students, parents, children, teachers is available. We have to create more awareness, and all institutions, banks, etc. has to use these posters and videos available there. In the last October Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we have tweeted all these awareness materials also for general consumption of the users. That is a generic awareness perspective. Now coming to the ransomware and FinSec. See, ransomware, as Sangamesh has correctly mentioned, it has evolved a lot. But what I want to appreciate a typical FinSector organization is to see about the risk to you. if a ransomware infection comes. The most disturbing trends happened in the last 2 years is the ransomware others have seen they're encrypting and demanding money. That is one happening. But with the evolution of this thing, best practice, etc., everybody did know that if I have a good backup, I will restore the from my trusted backup and I need not pay money. Now the purpose of the ransom demand is defeated. What they did now is they evolved of exfiltration of the data before encryption. The ransomware gangs, I don't want to give fame to them, so I'm not taking names of those gangs. They're evolving, various gangs are there. First, after encryption, they are actually exfiltrating the data, keeping a copy with them, and saying that in a particular underground forum or public forum, I will release 5% of the data as a sample. And now you pay, otherwise I will release all your 95% of the data there. Now, Bharat, from actually from a compliance perspective, if the data that is stolen is a card data, let us say, there are huge compliance problems are there and huge potential damage potential. If your stolen data is employee records, there is a different potential and risk to the company. If stolen data is a public data, including like Aadhaar and the personal information of the organization, or healthcare data for that matter, the COVID test reports, etc., the risk is huge to the users whose data is breached, as well as to
And
the company who has.
the organization. Yes.
So the liability is huge. So to that extent, I would suggest there is more seriousness is required. That is number one. Understand the liability. If you have the data of the customers, huge amount of data, you have to protect the data by all means. Now, unfortunate situation, yes, breaches do happen. Now, what you to do after breach happen? First of all, a company has to be able to prove that they have taken due diligence and reasonable security practices have been implemented. Otherwise, they are liable under IT Act. This is number one, everybody should appreciate. Number two, important point is, have you reported the incident? Why many companies do handle on their own. See, what happens is you may handle on your own, particularly in a community. I'm telling, not from a regulatory perspective. Regulatory perspective, reporting is mandatory to certain. They have to report. Financial sector organizations, as per RBI mandate, they have to report to RBI as well as certain. This reporting compliance is to be there. Once you don't report, once I learn from a media report and reach out to you that you have not reported what happened, then you confirm, means any company confirms, then you have done a mistake and you are liable for penalty.
You have committed a crime.
You have the mistake and there's a liability of non-reporting incidents. That is number one, you have to understand. Number two, reporting is to certain is required, and also sharing the information, indicators, etc. As a community here through DSCA and all of industry, all of us, we have to sort of come to a minimum common understanding of, suppose an aggregate ransomware attack happened on a particular company X, if they report incident to certain and also in a community share in an anonymous manner, whatever way, you need not tell that I am breached or something like that. So you can also say that there is an attempt from aggregate ransomware and these are the indicators. Share the indicators, share the attack vectors. Now, as you understand from a security community perspective, the indicators like IP addresses and domains keep on changing. That threat intel will be dated once it comes and you implement in a firewall, block those IPs. That doesn't matter much. Where we have to understand more is how the ransomware infection happened in the first hand. What is the point zero? What is the incoming attack vector? There are few attack vectors that are there. We have to understand these TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures of the attackers, and mitigate the device countermeasures for those incoming vectors. Very quickly, I will tell you the how the incoming vectors evolved. Initial ransomware like CryptoLocker, etc., since 2013 onwards, primary attack vector was spam mails. Spam mails come, somebody clicked on the spam mail, some malicious link or document, and it got infected, and it is encrypted the disks. That is a simple, trivial attack vector happened. Then it is evolved to spear phishing. So attacker gang is targeting a particular company and compromising some of the email accounts of this company and sending emails from a trusted account to other colleagues and getting infected. Then this also came down now. Recent trend last 1 year, mostly the open RDPs and stolen RDP credentials. That is the incoming vector. So now you mitigate that vector also. Then the thing has evolved now to mostly, now the recent thing happen is public facing web servers, mail server, etc. and then compromising those servers. So many vulnerabilities are there in the public facing systems. People are not patching. So once you don't patch a particular, let us say, Regetto HTTP file server, there is a serious vulnerabilities there. Microsoft Exchange server, serious vulnerabilities are there. If the company doesn't patch those things, there is a door open, attacker compromises. Now, the most important thing what we observed as part of incident handling is compromising of the public facing server, laterally moving into inside, then reaching to the Active Directory server or domain controller, then creating a VPN account there, authenticated VPN account there, and accessing other systems, and exfiltrating the data, and then keeping a copy with them, and then blackmailing. After this, not only this, most of the server, high-end server, whenever they find, they will install the coin miners also. They use all your computing power of mining crypto miners. That is also parallelly happens. Even though people clean this particular ransomware restore backup, the coin miner doesn't get cleaned up. Still, your servers are being used for mining the cryptocurrency. This is what the whole picture happening. Now, another point I will leave to other panelists and you for food for thought is, once the data is exfiltrated and attacker is blackmailing, how will deal with the situation? How we'll deal with the reputation of the company? How we will deal with the risk of the disclosure of that particular sensitive user data? This is a problem where governments, law enforcement, CERTs, and the forums like DSCI and the entities itself has to work together. Yeah, that's what
every practitioner. And a very excellent explanation, Sharmaji, about the mindset of you started from mindset of ransomware hackers to the government strategy challenges all across, be it government, be it institution, be it individual. So fantastic and really is an eye opener. But you touch upon various sector, but one of the critical sectors is the financial sector, and I come from that sector, so I've seen the kind of attack what has happened and how it has damaged many. I can't name, but you all are aware that the top banks and all. So when in today's time, not only security, the availability of a financial system is also one of the prime objective, because 5-minute downtime create the help in the whole environment. So let me come to Himanshu, because you come from the solution side. So what are the operational security changes or tactics what you as a solution provider you think we need to look up on, because security professional as well, how we can secure our system and make sure that we are always available 24/7. Himanshu, please.
Sure, Bharat, and thank you. So first of all, financial institutions are heavily targeted by attackers, as you mentioned at the beginning of your talk. That's where the money is, and that's why attackers are always interested in targeting financial institutions. That's the primary motive these days, finance. Now, Sangamesh talked about ransomware, where it started, where it is going. Sharmaji also talked about the double extortion techniques that the attackers are using. He touched upon the double extortion technique, where the data is exfiltrated by attackers before encryption, and then they encrypt it and then demand money, otherwise they will release the data. Now, as he also mentioned, that organizations have gotten good at backing up the data, and in some of the ransomware attacks, they were able to restore the data from backups and use that. That's why the effectiveness of backups or ransom attacks was going down. The double extortion came in picture, and even backups were not sufficient. So first of all, any organization, whether it is fintech or anything else, but primarily in fintech, because of the sensitive data that these organizations store, it is imperative that the data is always encrypted, and the encryption keys are safely stored so that they are not accessible to anyone. Right? If the data is encrypted fairly, even if it gets exfiltrated, it will not have any impact. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of echo. Can everybody please go on mute?
Yeah, echo is coming.
Yeah. Okay. This is better now. Thank you. So yeah. So what is with encryption? You can save some sort of double extortion attacks. But even in this, the attackers are also always evolving. If the organizations have started encrypting their data and using backups, the attackers have to find ways to still earn money. And that's where, particularly against financial institutions, they have started using a different multi-vector attack where they are now using DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, for demanding ransom from these institutions. And Bharat, as you mentioned, the financial services availability is a major area. They have to be available. If they go down for a few minutes, millions of customers may get impacted. For example, in India, UPI has become the primary payment mechanism these days. We are all using those APIs extensively throughout the day. So if that infrastructure goes down even for a minute, imagine what kind of financial transactions will be affected. So this is what the attackers are relying on. They are relying on the financial institutions' inability to survive a long unavailability of their services. So in addition to ransomware, they have now started to use the fear of a DDoS attack to ask for ransom or demand ransom from the target organizations. Okay, so this is the attacker side of a story. Now, what can organizations do to keep themselves safe? First of all, naturally, the first one that comes to mind is use web application firewalls. So there are really good web application firewalls which are available in market today. Understand your services that are exposed publicly. Understand what are the right usage of those services. Deploy these web application firewalls and ensure that those web application firewalls are filtering any unexpected data or connections that are being requested to those APIs. Also, set up in-house security teams. So this is where probably many financial institutions are not focused. But it is crucial that any organization which has even the smallest digital footprint to have a dedicated cybersecurity team in-house. Either they build the team on their own or they engage with a third-party SOC provider, because that is crucial. Once you have that team, log each and every activity that is happening on your servers and web services. So any connection requests that are coming in, the responses that are going out, keep recording them and pass this data to your SOC team for regular analysis. And this SOC team is continuously analyzing this data. In case they notice any spike, then they start acting immediately. So even if someone is trying to launch a DDoS attack against these services, one, your protection mechanism, such as a web application firewall, will help protect you. But a web application firewall would probably not keep you safe in every instance. So assume that some attacks would still be able to hit your services. In that case, having this dedicated SOC team, which is continuously analyzing the incoming data, looking for any potential anomalies and spikes, that becomes crucial. So for me, the most important security mechanism is, in addition to the security tools, having those dedicated security teams in-house. All right. Add to that, the organizations, particularly in the financial institutes, they should look at security from two perspectives. One is how to minimize the possibility of an attack, which is where web application firewall using multi-layered security and other good cybersecurity practices come into picture. Mm-hmm. At the same time, though, the reality is that a motivated attacker can always find a way through your defenses. So having the various security layers in place makes it really expensive for those attackers to get through your defenses. But even then, some attacks may be successful. So this is where the second approach comes into picture, which is usually termed as assume breach mentality. Assume that a breach may happen. Assume that a successful cyber attack against your organization may happen. Define a response plan beforehand. Make sure that you have an adequate response plan in place. Your SOC team is looking at the data regularly. They are determining whether something anomalous is happening. If something anomalous is detected, act as per that response plan. Right?
That makes sense, yeah.
This will help minimize the impact of any successful attack if and when that happens.
I agree because I personally believe that there is no such thing called fully secure in this world, and
Yes.
we all need to go with that a thumb rule that you are hacked. If you are not aware, then it is your problem, or
Correct.
you are about to hack. These are the
Yes.
two probability. There's no third probability in my personal experience. That's what I say. But when we're talking about cyber threat and this kind of in-house security, but still we have one limitation, and that let me tell you honestly that we believe that since I have all tool and all system and practices are in place, probably I'm not going to hack. We need to come out from that syndrome that okay. Just because I'm safe and I have taken enough protection, nothing is going to happen because we are in the cyber world, which is borderless, and of course the crime are also borderless. So when we are talking about the homegrown system or homegrown control and all, threat intelligence across border make lot of difference. So let me bring in Calvin because he comes from the worldwide organization where can you please share such insight about the role of threat intelligence, sharing with various organization or study institution, where we as a targeted audience can make use of that. And if you can bring some perspective, India or Southeast Asia as a the hub of technology, where they stand in terms of the global practices. Over to you, Calvin.
Okay, thank you very much. I think firstly, I just like to say I'm really delighted to be here as part of the panel with the great opportunity to have this discussion with experts in this field. It is very enlightening, that's for sure. So to your question about threat intelligence, I think coming from SentinelOne, where I'm responsible for the Asia Pacific and Japan theater, I constantly interact with my threat research team about what we see that's out there, what is in the region, and what's specific that's in country, and so on. It is very, very concerning. I would say it's very concerning in that sense about what we see in terms of the threats, not just the kind of attack vectors that is occurring, the ransomware, multi-vector attacks, everything that has been discussed earlier on, how it has evolved over the last couple of years. I think that is very concerning in many aspects of it. Now, why, I guess, if we take a step back and we talk about threat intelligence as a topic on its own, if you think about it, threat intelligence is really an evidence-based kind of knowledge, right? And that includes the context, the mechanism, the indicators, your IOCs, the kind of implications of the kind of advice that we can give, the action-oriented kind of advice of a existing or emerging or just a brand new attack that we have seen. So how can we then take this threat intelligence and make an informed decision in your environment, in the setup, in the systems that you have? I mean, if you think about the vulnerabilities that might be there, having this additional intel and understanding, the vulnerabilities that have occurred and so on, how can we then take this information, learn from the experience from different kinds of organizations, attacks, and so on, and then put that into the stack, the security stack that you have. So I think one of the things that the cybersecurity industry, the challenges that we face is that there is a lot of information that is out there. I think a lot of organizations have built up their SOC team very well. They have expertise in getting the information. But if you were to then go back and analyze that, and the discussions that I have with a lot of organizations, financial institutions are very focused around building SOCs, right? And you talk about some of the organizations having a combination of NOCs, which is the network operation centers. And if you go into a level even higher, when we talk about the government agencies, they're talking about JOCs, which is the Joint Operation Center, where there is also healthcare, military, financial parts, all that comes into play. Now, the challenge that the industry face as a whole is that there is a lot of information. There is a lot of threat actors out there. Now, the qualification, who is going to curate that information, is going to be very key. because otherwise you're going to have a lot of information and you have to go through that enormous amount of information, and then this daily flood of data that's coming in, how are you going to digest that and pick up what is really important, what is malicious, and what is not? So I think those are the ones that is a challenge. Now, on the other side of it is that we do see that there's a serious shortage of skilled professionals in this field. There are a lot of people who claim to know, but when they look at the vectors, they look at the stuff, there is a shortage of that expertise, that's for sure. And now we do see this shortage globally, right? I mean, I see a lot of expertise in India. I see a lot of that in the region as well. And I think, how do we then take that information, not just put it into products or anything like that? It's a matter of how do we make that protocol inter-exchangeable to all the various industry, and specifically to the financial institutions. I think that one is very key. Now, one of the things that I would also share, something that I've been analyzing, and something that I've seen specifically in the financial sector, and not just in India, but across the region as well. Some of you may be aware, techniques that are being used that's beyond just the DDoS and the ransomware is like Trojans, for example, that have been evolving. And one of the more famous one that has that gone into the news was the Emotet Trojans, right? The Emotet Trojan is one that's pretty sophisticated, is a multi-vector. And we have seen this since 2014. It re-emerged in 2017. I think in 2019, a few banks in India got hit. And the way it evolves, the way it is being used, it is not just a matter of getting an IOC and say, this is the hash and this is the malicious code. It evolves so quickly in which that you can have multi-stage attacks, ransomware included. You got credential stealing methods. And I've seen cases whereby credentials are then being stolen. And once I have the credentials of your systems, it's the keys to the kingdom, right? I go into your AD and to SS Point, how you do all those infiltration, as well as the data exfiltration, all that all comes in. Now, it is important to understand that even for an attack like that to happen, it actually takes different organizations. And I think in beginning of this year, Europol, for example, consisting of various government agencies, the FBI was also involved, and they took down the Emotet network towards the end of January. So we did not see very much of that resurfacing. But those of us in the threat intel, those of us in the security industry are constantly looking out, for the re-emergence of this.
No, it's very, very great insight, Kelvin. You really brought a lot of right perspective, and I really like the way you explain about the shortage of really skilled resources, because we may have many IT resources. India is hub for technology, but to get right skill set to protect or to respond on any cyber attack, really that's a global challenge, and definitely we'll have to overcome on that. But while it is true that we are at the point of no return in terms of use of technology, we just can't go back on those days where we used to have a landline at our home instead of mobile. So that is inevitable that we have to continue with the technology, and we have to live with that. But at the same time, the cyber security and cyber attack are going to be a continuous headache for all of us. And in today's time, with so much of proliferation of technology, do you think that current resiliency plan, be it DR to BCP or data backup, encryption, and all other things, do you think that this current plan are good enough to recover our critical financial system or business function at speed? My request to all the panelists, if each one of you can briefly touch upon this point. What is it enough what we are doing right now? And if not, what we need to add? Very briefly, please. Start with Sharmaji. I think you're mute.
Sorry, to avoid echo, I was muting. It's a great point. That is very, very important point. So see, we mentioned as from a third perspective. See, we handle incident from a larger, wide variety of constituency, right? From a major, let us say, financial institution to small, medium business company and end users. See, there are various different maturity levels. So according to the budget and business range and maturity level, you have to assess your plans. See, what happens is you can't expect all kinds of security measures as well as teams, etc., in place in a small, medium business. So here there is first of all, I wish to tell that there is a huge opportunity and a need of the hour is the collaboration. How industry, government, academic institutions, and the global forums, how we can collaborate to create a kind of small task force helpline. For example, for threat intel sharing or those kind of things. Now, Bharat, important point is even if I give threat intel, so many organizations we see they struggle to consume and act upon those threat intel.
Sometimes
So-
they don't even open that email also. I'm aware about that.
that emails and we have Stix taxi-based platforms to enable organizations that you have a taxi client and pull data from us through API and just integrate with your SIM. But see, as Kelvin has correctly mentioned, if you integrate threat intel to SIM, you all have seen those things. It will throw 100 alerts. How do
Yeah.
you prioritize these alerts? That data fatigue, alert fatigue will be there. Even if L1, L2, what kind of Hanuman you put up there, he will be fatigued with the data of and alerts. This is
Fully agree.
this is a challenge. So
Right,
there
right.
should be a plan, as Himanshu correctly mentioned. First of all, perceive your threat, perceive your business and assets, and have a small, very brief plan.
Correct.
If at all something happens with me, how would I handle with this plan? Suppose
Sure.
a DDoS attack happens with me. I have a WAF or DDoS mitigation device? Can I procure and put or not? If I can't put a DDoS mitigation solution, can I have an arrangement with my upstream ISP to mitigate attack for me? Or can I outsource my SOC or I have to operate my own SOC? These kind of criteria somebody has to balance. Now
Strategic decision.
we all experienced people like you and from our CERT experience DSCA, we have to come up with certain kind of framework for small and medium businesses. See, if you have this thing,
Correct.
do like this. If you don't have this, these are your collaborative sources that are available. Like that,
Very good.
sometimes you can't handle your incident. You know, I will say very simple use case example. When a financial institution was threatened in last 3 months back, and we suspected and we have seen buildup of a huge DDoS attack. The internet pipe connection of the particular institution is 1 Gbps, let us say, and the typical attack that can come with this actors is around 300 Gbps. The whole ISP will choke in the
Of course,
kind of
yeah.
DDoS attacks. It's not that institution or even ISP will handle. So we had to request all basic upstream ISPs to be on caution and mitigate the attacks towards the specific ISP and institution. So
Very
we need
great
to have-
example, Sharma
we
ji.
need to have some kind of pre-notioned threat perception, and in case of the threat comes at a national level, how we will collaborate, who I
Right.
will reach, do we know each other or not? I always see people that I know you or not, you know CERT or not, I know point of contact in DSCA and major banks or not. This is very much important.
Very
We should
important.
have
Yeah.
the freedom. I'm telling you honestly from a real world example, we should have the freedom to take a conversation in midnight, start and talk in midnight, and sharing information and act upon the threat, because this threat will not wait for our plans and procedures.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
So that's what
So
we have to have a
let me bring
perceive.
Sangamesh. Sangamesh, can you please briefly tell about what do you think that the current arrangement, is it enough or not?
So, Bharat, to be precise, like the current preparation by the organization is not enough, because we still rely on the traditional way of adapting the cyber resiliency processes, right? So we need to, I mean, in the sense like the organization has to equip themselves in terms of preparing themselves to respond to an attack or such kind of a cyber event by simulating the attack on their own, right? So we have technologies like breach and attack simulation, where attack can be simulated in their own environment and see their preparedness and readiness, and also test their processes across, like people, process, technology, right? Whether the technology is
Yeah.
able to detect such kind of an event and the process is effective, people have the right skill set to classify that it is an cyber event. As like Mr. Sharma told, humongous alerts, right? What if unskilled person sitting in a security operations center looking at
Even skilled
attack
person
and
also.
wrongly
Even skilled person
classifies.
also can't do that. It's not his job.
Yes,
It's not
and wrongly
human beings
classifies
can do
that as
that.
a false positive. wrongly classifies that a false pursuit that lead to a major impact as well. So
Great.
organization
Himanshu,
has to.
Himanshu, your concluding remarks, please. We are running short of time. I think we have
Sure.
overshoot a few seconds. So please.
Okay. So simple answer is no. The current preparations are not sufficient. And in fact, that is the premise that I would recommend organizations to always work with, because cyber attackers are always looking for ways to bypass your defenses and breach your whatever preparations you have done. So all the preparations have to be continuously improved.
Great.
So at any stage of time, if you ask me this question, my answer simply will be no.
Very good. Kevin, your last point.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I know that we have run out of time, but I will say this, right? And to articulate what Himanshu has said earlier on, it is never enough. But I think what is important is that organizations need to remain vigilant and constantly look what is out there, right? In terms of what the technologies that's out there, in terms of what the processes that can be improved, in terms of what training can be deployed. For the users, for the people. I mean, the thing is this: we talk about people who are not skilled, but how do they get skilled?
Yes.
Through training, through understanding, and and of course, when we talk about the technology piece, it's like, what can we do better? What is out there?
Excellent. Exactly.
Vigilant on that, yeah.
Superb. So, just to wrap up, in addition to what all you four eminent people just said, from my side, I think the most important part is not technology, not the best of the best tool, but a coordination and cooperation within the whole set of people, be it government, be it institution, be it regulator. I think that is where we need to really come together and fight collectively. So, thank you very much for having this wonderful discussion. I'm getting many messages on my WhatsApp as well that people are really want to continue this discussion for a few more hours, but definitely Vivek is not allowing us because he's looking at me that we have overshot the time. So back to you, Vivek, and thanks to all the participants and all the viewers for having a passionate listening to this panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bharat, for
very much.
moderating such a nice panel, and thank you everyone, H. Sharma sir, for bringing the perspective from the CERT India and telling us the quick insights from your journey of 15 years. Himanshu, thanks for your insights from the technology provider and security provider point of view. Samay is coming from the large enterprise serving global customers. His point of view also added value to the panel. Kelvin is again coming from the capability provider. So I thank all of you. We are short of time, so we'll take questions.
You did not say thanks to me, man.
Yeah, Bharat, you are the showstopper. So you have moderated this. You have such a huge experience working with NPCI and FIS Global. You are always add expertise, and we really look forward to your guidance and advice.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, everyone.
Just thanks, and we have to more seriously work on the collaboration. That's what I urge the panelists and Bharat and DSCI.
Yeah.
We are ready to collaborate. We have proved, and collaboration works great. Technology, people, process, everything need to be improved, but collaboration is most important.
Is the key. Is the key.
Have some action plan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.